Welcome to StampinPiece.com. I'm Mary Knabe, an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Westerville, Ohio, in the United States. Today I want to show you why I keep a steady supply of sticky notes in my craft room to aid me in my stamping and paper crafting business. I like to keep a wide array of sticky notes close at hand for various reasons. They can be any size, any shape, any color. I find a use for them all. Sometimes they're ones I purchased, and sometimes they're given as gifts. This was a giveaway at one of the Stampin' Up! Events I attended, so those come in handy as well. Sometimes I even, depending on my use for the sticky notes, I may even cut them apart. This was a square 3x3 Post-it notepad that I simply cut in half, and then I have some large ones as well. The most obvious reason for having sticky notes close by is for taking notes or making lists. Here you see I've started a list of things I need to accomplish tomorrow in my craft room. Another purpose for Post-it notes in my craft room is so that I can tag various products in my Stampin' Up! Catalogs for different reasons. So for example, on this page, and I just wrote on the end, order. And if you're doing this, you're writing upside down because you want the sticky part to be inside the catalog. But I just wrote order. And this is a note for me to remember the next time I place an order, I want to purchase the newest Stampin' Blends for the 2020-22 in color. So I just made myself a note. I also will tag things in my catalog. This one says design. I recently purchased the Nothing's Better Than stamp set and the coordinating dies, and I'm excited to put together a class with this stamp set. So I just have a little tag here that says design. So when I open it up, I can see everything that's included in the stamp set, but I also see some very nice samples that might give me some inspiration in my creating. The next way I use sticky notes or Post-it notes is for stamping and punching from scraps. For example, I'm going to stamp the birds on branches from my Posted For You stamp set. And I don't want to waste large pieces of cardstock, so I pulled out these two scraps. Sometimes the scraps are basic shapes, strips, or squares, or rectangles, circles, whatever. And other times they're odd shapes, like this one that was a scrap from something that I die cut. Now, for the card I'm making, I would go ahead and color each of these. So I'll color one very quickly just so you can see how I did it, because I will be showing you a sample card that I made using this Post-it note tip. This is going to be real fast. That color I used was Poppy Parade. I'm attempting to color the birds, robin redbreasts. Little robins have that red underneath. This is soft suede. I used the dark, and now I'm going to fill in with that light shade. And I'm even going to go over that Poppy Parade. I don't want it to be quite as bright. I think if I go over it with the light soft suede, it gives that a little more realistic look to the red on the Robin Redbreast. And then I have some Old Olive Stampin' blends. I'm quickly just going to put some detail in these leaves. Stampin' Up makes it easy because I've already added details. So I'm just going over that very quickly. And then that will all get blended in when I fill in the leaves and branches with the light Old Olive Stampin' Blends marker. Whenever you are, I guess you're getting an additional tip today, because I want to tell you that whenever you are coloring small things and you're going to either punch it out or die cut it, I suggest that you do your coloring first before you punch it or die cut it, because you have a little extra space to hold on to it while you're coloring without your fingers getting in your way. Okay, so now I have this beautiful stamped and colored image that I want to use on a card. So I'm going to pull out my new rectangular postage stamp punch. And I'm going to attempt to, I want to punch this out, but I'm having trouble. I don't have enough room to hold this and maneuver this in here. This is where another sticky note tip comes in. I'm going to pull off one of my sticky notes. I'm going to grab just a small corner of that cardstock. And now I can insert this all the way into my punch, place it right where I want it, all while just holding on to the Post-it note and not having to figure out how to hold on to that small scrap of cardstock and maneuver it in my punch so that it punches out straight and centered. So here's another example of one. Now this was a little bit longer, but also not as wide as the first one. You can see I'm still having trouble there. So again, I'm just going to pick up a corner of the cardstock with the sticky end of one of my Post-it notes, put my cardstock in place and punch. So super easy. So another great use. Okay, would you like to see a sample of a card I made using this Post-it note technique? There you go. Cute, isn't it? And again, these stamped images, including the happy birthday, are from the Post-it For You stamp set. Next, I'm going to pull in my paper trimmer to show you another way I use Post-it notes in my craft room. Here is another card I made with those same bird images. I simply repeated what I just showed you 3 different times and made this lovely card. But I want a sentiment to put on it, and I want to use the same happy birthday sentiment. Now I know to stamp that happy birthday, I need just a scrap. So here's a 3" by 1" scrap of Old Olive that I have. I really only need, and if I lay this on my paper trimmer, I can see a 1/2" strip would work pretty well. So let's try that first, a 1/2" strip. Whoops. Now I don't want it to move, and since I can't hold on to that cardstock and keep it in place after I put the cutting guard down, I just slip put the sticky end of my Post-it note on a corner of that cardstock and secure it to the paper trimmer itself. And then I can cut that easily. And I have 2 small strips now. Let me go ahead and stamp my sentiment on one of these strips. Try to get it stamped nice and straight. Oh, really well, really well. And now I think I'm just going to clip the ends at an angle. And I'm ready to attach it to my card front. I think I'll just use a little bit of multi-purpose glue to do that. Now I also wanted to show you, so that tip using the Post-it notes is very handy when you need small strips, perhaps for stamping sentiments like I did here. But sometimes you might want to add narrow strips to a card front you're making, or perhaps to a scrapbook page. This use of sticky notes with your paper trimmer also comes in handy if you wanted to cut several narrow strips of cardstock or foil sheets to use as embellishing on cards and various things. And I find this very helpful when I'm preparing for classes, because it can be hard to hold the small scraps, but yet I don't want to use up whole sheets of cardstock to cut an assortment or a quantity of narrow strips of paper. So I pull out my scraps. I again use the sticky end of my Post-it note, and I want 1/4 inch strips. So I've got it holding the cardstock to my paper trimmer, and then I can just lift this up, scoot it over to the 1/4 inch mark again, secure it down with my Post-it note. Now the second one, pick up, move it over to the 1/4 inch strip. And you want to make sure that some of that stickiness is on the cardstock and some is on the paper trimmer. And I can keep going until I basically use up this entire strip of cardstock. Oh, that one moved on me a little bit, didn't it? So this one, I'm going to straighten this out there. And if you feel more secure putting a second Post-it note on when it's getting this thin, by all means, go ahead and do that. This was the one that was came out kind of crooked, so I'm pushing that aside. And I redid the leftover piece and got another nice 1/4 inch strip. So there are several ways that you can use Post-it notes in your craft room. Obviously, for taking notes, perhaps you'd be watching one of my Facebook Lives and you want to jot down dimensions for the card I'm making on a Post-it note and then stick it to that stamp set or whatever. You might want to use them to tag products in your catalog that you're interested in ordering or that you want to look up card designs on. You might also use them with your punches when you're stamping and punching on small scraps of paper. We don't like to waste, so let's use up those scraps. and also for cutting narrow strips on your paper trimmer, as I did for the sentiment and also for these 4 1/4-inch strips that I'll be using on a future card. I hope you found these tips useful, and I look forward to seeing how you use them in your craft room. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.